If you've ever tried to lose fat before, chances are you've heard something along the lines of you need to move more and eat less. And while yeah, it's true that you probably need to move a little bit more and eat a little bit less in order to lose fat, on its own, that's not very helpful advice. So by the end of this video, you'll have some actionable steps on how to actually move more and eat less so you can actually lose fat. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to be walking you through a day of actually putting all these steps together, how to apply it to your life, as well as some other cool stuff you're not going to want to miss out. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe button. You know the deal. Really helps out the channel. So let's look at the first half of that less than stellar advice, moving more. One of the easiest ways to move more is just by walking. Just walking and trying to get more steps in your day-to-day activities is a great way to start moving more, which is going to help you lose fat. It also just feels good, and it's good for your mental health as well. So get out there and go for a freaking walk. But specifically, how can you get more steps in? First off, I would suggest that you set a step goal. Now that step goal doesn't have to be 10,000 steps. I know that number gets thrown around a lot, but what I suggest you do is audit how many steps you think you're currently getting. You can look at something like your iPhone, your Apple Watch, whatever other fitness device you might be wearing, and just look at how many steps you're currently getting on average. And then just try to increase that by like 25%. So let's say maybe you're getting only 2,000 or 3,000 steps per day. Aim for something like 5,000 steps. It doesn't have to be some grand number. Maybe that's something you want to work towards down the line, but right out the gate, just trying to move a little bit more. Tip number 2 on how you can get more steps in, just simply go for a walk. You've set your step goal. Now it's time to actually go on a walk. Put this in your calendar like it's an important meeting. Maybe it's something you do when you first wake up to kind of help wake you up.
Duh.
Maybe that's something you do right before and or right after a meal to help you digest, as well as just get those steps in. Instead of scrolling social media for 5 hours, maybe you scroll social media for 4 hours and 45 minutes and take yourself on a nice 15-minute walk. Some other ideas are just park further away when you go to the grocery store. You know, instead of trying to get as close to the store as possible, park further away and you might get an extra 1,000 steps on your way there, maybe an extra 1,000 on your way back, depending on the size of the parking lot. Always take the stairs over the elevator, and unless of course you're visiting the Empire State Building or something, then I'm definitely taking the elevator there, no doubt. Or maybe do an extra lap around the grocery store. You're already there, you've already committed X amount of time to go to the grocery store. Why not do one more lap and get a couple hundred more steps in? You see, moving more doesn't have to be some grand gesture. Just get out there and move a little bit more. And it's all about finding those daily micro movements that will really add up over time. Tip number 2 is get an active hobby. Video games, reading, all these, sedentary activities are great and good for your mental health, good for other things. But I think it's important to get an active hobby. Things that you enjoy doing that get you outside, that get you active, that get you moving, and you kind of forget how much time has passed because you're having so much fun, or it's something intense like maybe snowboarding or mountain biking, where you really have to focus and you can't really get away with not focusing. And so the time just flies. So things like mountain biking, hiking, snowboarding, wakeboarding, or wake surfing are all great ideas to get out there and get active. And lastly, tip number 3 here to move more, follow a simple and fun workout plan. I'll include a link in the description of this video where you can go get a free workout template if you're not sure where to get started. But I think some good things to keep in mind when it comes to creating a workout plan is, don't try and do too much, Maybe you read somewhere on Instagram or somewhere on my page that you need to work out 5 days a week. I would rather you work out 3 days a week, hit 3 out of 3 workouts instead of 3 out of 5 planned workouts, because 1, you're just going to feel a lot more accomplished hitting 100% of your workouts, even though you completed the same number of workouts. And 2, remember, simple and fun. If you hate doing a certain exercise or a certain style of workout, don't do it because you're not going to be consistent with it. And so you want to find something that's simple, something that's fun, and that you can do for the long haul. And remember, when we're talking about moving less here, it's not about running a marathon every day. It's not about doing something that takes forever, either leaves you exhausted or just really screws up your schedule. It's about getting those micro movements in throughout the day that are really going to add up and help you lose fat, be healthy, and happier. All right, now that we covered how to move more, you're already halfway there. So go ahead, give yourself a high five. You're doing a great job. Now let's talk about how to eat less. So eating less doesn't always have to mean less food volume or less total food on your plate, or the physical amount of food that you're seeing on your plate. What it does mean though is swapping foods that have a high caloric density with the foods that have a lower caloric density. That way you can eat a similar amount of calories, but it's gonna be a lot bigger package, a lot more volume. It's gonna fill you up a lot more than these highly caloric foods. And this is gonna make that fat loss process a whole lot easier. So focusing on foods like lean proteins, something like chicken breast, chicken thighs, lean ground beef, lean cuts of steak, lean cuts of pork. These are all gonna be great options for lean proteins. I'd also throw in there things like protein powders, whether that be a whey protein or a plant-based protein. Anything that has a really high amount of protein and not a whole lot else, being carbs or fats. The other thing you want to focus on when focusing on foods with a low caloric density are fruits and vegetables. So things like lettuce, tomato, onion, bell peppers, berries, kiwis, tangerines, oranges. All these are going to be great options. And remember, these don't have to be bland, boring, tasteless, soul-sucking meals. In fact, what I want you to do, go ahead, leave a comment down below of what you think the most boring, healthy meal is, and I'll go ahead and make a video of me making it as least boring as possible. Number 2 on how to eat less to lose fat, prioritize protein. Whether you want to build muscle or lose fat, I think it's important to prioritize protein, and that should be the first sort of thought process that goes into whatever kind of meal you're making. So not only is protein a food that's going to have a lower caloric density, like we just went over, but it's also necessary to build muscle, which I'm guessing you like to do in addition to lose a little bit of fat as well. So prioritizing protein, this will not only help you build muscle and lose fat, but protein is also very satiating, meaning it's going to keep you fuller for longer, which is also going to help you eat less. So it's a win-win. Tip number 3 on how to eat less: eat a breakfast that is primarily protein and fat, little to no carbs. Kind of piggybacking off the last tip, this is going to help keep you fuller until your next meal without that tired, sluggish feeling that you get when you eat a breakfast that's really high in carbohydrates, like pancakes or French toast. Even though they're delicious, I don't know about you, but whenever I have something like that, I am ready for a nap that I never want to wake up from. Typically, I like to aim for about 30 to 50% of my total daily protein in my first meal of the day. Probably the easiest way to do that, which I think really covers everything that we're talking about here, would be a breakfast scramble. So for me, that looks like something like eggs, sometimes egg whites, a lean sausage or turkey bacon, bell peppers and onions. You can get frozen bell peppers and onions from the store, which are super easy. It's gonna, be a super quick and easy, delicious breakfast. Maybe throw some spinach, some guac, some cheese. This is gonna be really high protein, really high fat, keep you fueling through your day. So you're starting to see how all these tips are kind of starting to intertwine. Foods with low caloric density, lean protein, vegetables. That's a great recipe to eat less, which is gonna help you lose fat. Now, some other kind of off-the-wall ideas here for how to eat less. Put your fork down in between each bite and allow yourself to fully chew your food. This will force you to slow down and actually enjoy your food. Give yourself a chance to actually digest your food, because digestion starts mechanically in the mouth before it goes down into your stomach. Another good tip to eat less: don't watch TV while you eat. I'm guilty of this one, especially since I'm rewatching Ozark, because the problem with this is when you're watching TV, you're fully zoned out, and your mind, as smart as we are, we have these kind of archaic brains. Your brain is just distracted, so it can't fully realize how full and satiated it really is. So you tend to eat a lot more when you do something like watch TV or scroll TikTok or Instagram or any other social media while you eat. So instead of watching TV while you eat, you could talk with your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, roommate, whatever. And if you don't have any of those, you can just sit and stare at a wall and enjoy your meal like a psychopath. Last tip here to eat less is buy smaller plates and bowls. Again, taking advantage of these Neanderthal brains that we have that are taking a little bit longer to catch up with the modern world that we live in here. It's a psychological trick. So if you buy a smaller plate and you fill that smaller plate up, your mind's going to think that you're eating more food, But when in reality, compared to a larger plate that you may already have or typically eat off of, if you were to fill that plate up, that's a lot more food, sometimes maybe even twice as much food as you would eat on the smaller plate. But it doesn't really feel like you're eating less. So it's a good way to trick your silly monkey brain into thinking that you're filled up. So putting it all together, what would a day of moving more and eating less maybe look like? So first things first, you wake up, you get out of bed, you brush your teeth because that's gross if you don't. Go for a 10-minute walk to wake up and get more movement in. You come home and maybe you make a breakfast scramble like outlined above with eggs, egg whites, turkey, bacon, bell peppers, onions, some cheese. Bonus, maybe you go for another 10-minute walk after you eat to help you digest and get more movement in. Come back, now it's time for lunch. Maybe you have chicken, rice, and green beans, but you make it not boring. Then you realize that you have nothing left in the freezer or fridge for dinner, so you hop on over to the store, you park as far away as possible without having to, walk miles into the grocery store. You get in there, and before you start shopping, maybe you do a lap around just to kind of see what there is to see and get more movement in. Go home, enjoy another delicious meal, prioritizing protein and vegetables, maybe some fruit, without watching TV, setting your fork down in between bites, and staring at the wall or your partner while you eat. Next step is you start to lose fat. Woohoo! You did it. So, didn't that feel good? Wasn't that? That was good. You see, losing fat, gaining muscle, this whole fitness game, it's actually pretty simple. But that doesn't mean that it's easy, which is exactly why I've developed my one-to-one coaching program over the last couple of years to make losing fat and building muscle as easy, simple, and fun as possible, and how to fit it into your specific day-to-day lifestyle. If you're interested in learning about how it all works, I'll go ahead and drop another link down in the description where you can fill out a quick little inquiry. We'll hop on a chat, see if this is going to work for you, and take it from there. So don't let you hold yourself back. If you're not happy with where you are in life or where you are in your fitness journey, do something about it. You have the power to change your trajectory, but it has to start with you. So until next time, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you in another video. Peace out.